So Nichelle, tell us, for those of the people who don't know, and even for myself as well, let us in kind of what your life has been like to now from when you kind of exited high school.
Okay.
Roughly.
So first I'll just quickly introduce myself because most people don't know who I am. My name is Nichelle Thompson, so that's N as in Nancy. A lot of people always call me Michelle, but it's Nichelle. And Thompson spelled without a P, so right away it's just like a lot of people mess that up. But I am a chronic pain and movement specialist, so essentially what that means is I help people live pain-free, better quality of lives, and I do that through manual osteopathy and athletic therapy, and also Bioflex laser therapy, and I do that out of my clinic, HEAT, Holistically Elite Active Therapy, that I run here in Sudbury. But to get away from that, because I really want this to be for your audience and not really just focus so much on me because of what I said before.
And we will get to the you of it as
exactly, because it's just like really the potential, like I mentioned before, is just phenomenal. I just really want to be that catalyst to hopefully inspire someone to just get into their entrepreneurial life if that's what they want to do.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So what was that kind of strategy like as you left?
Yeah.
How'd you make that decision to jump into the career in business?
So this is very interesting. So I would say I was very lucky. So I look young. I'll start there. I look young, so I find a lot of people ask me, my clientele, like, how long have you been doing this? And I love that question because people are always shocked with my answer. And the truth of the matter is I've actually been practicing physical therapy since I was 4 years old. My first memory is my aunt saying, "Oh, can you look at my wrist?" And I remember feeling the little bones and just feeling kind of, massaging out the area and stuff like that. So it was something that I just was, that I believe I was just naturally gifted with. But at the same time, I didn't really understand how I could monetize on that. So as I grew and experienced different things, like I was a dancer and a gymnast, and I was very good at art, so I'm like, maybe I'll be a fashion designer. I had all these different things. But I was lucky enough to be given a blessing in disguise. I was injured in a dance competition, and that is what directed me back to therapy. And it was like all of a sudden that light bulb moment, like, wow, this is exactly what I want to do. Because that feeling that I got, that, okay, I can continue my dance career for a little bit longer. I'm like, I want to give this to people, because to be honest, I was a little bit depressed. I couldn't dance the same. I was in pain, and I realized, like, wow, sometimes people have been living years like this, and nothing actually makes me happier than to help people live better quality of lives. So for me, I was very driven in high school because I knew to get into the program, which my first program was athletic therapy, and I was Sheridan, and they historically primarily take people who have already done kinesiology or other university or college programs, and then they get into they don't take many kids right out of high school.
Straight out the gate,
Exactly. So I'm like, you know what, I need to bear down. So like I graduated top of my class in high school, like I did very, very well, and I went into athletic therapy, and then as fate would have it, I was taught by professors who were manual osteopaths. And I just want to stop there for a second, because one of my other pieces of advice for people in high school is you have to try things.
That's the key, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've noticed that. That's a common thing that I've been saying and I've heard people say,
It's so true, because what happens is you either have just read about it or heard about it, and that is not the same thing as actually experiencing it.
Yeah, it's a different beast.
And knowing, absolutely. So it's just like shadow as many different types of professions as you think you are interested in. So if you want to go into engineering, my first question to you is, have you shadowed an engineer? Do you actually know what they do all day?
Or it's just the words sound nice and the paycheck looks good.
Exactly. And it's just like, because like you spend a phenomenal amount of time.
It's an absurd amount of time.
Exactly, working. So it's like, do you really want to spend the majority of your life hating what you're doing from a Monday to Friday?
Yeah.
Like, seriously, right?
It's not a good way of living.
No, absolutely not. But you don't really think about that when you're a kid. And so that's why I want to say, just try things, because the other point is that people think high school is like the best years of their life. Have you ever heard that saying?
I've heard a lot of people say it. I'm not one of those people, but I have heard that.
I really dislike that saying, and I want to like shatter that myth, because if you think high school is the best years of your life, you're doing something wrong, and I feel very sad for you.
Yeah.
Because 4 years is nothing. in your life, really.
Yeah, it really isn't. You're right.
You should use that 4 years to understand who you are as a person. And even then, it's like you're going to continue to learn and grow, but it's like at least use those years to understand, okay, I like this, I don't like this, I maybe want to get into this, and that way you're not crying during your grade 12 graduation because you're so stressed out that you don't know what you're doing, and then you're going to waste 20 grand on an engineering program that you end up quitting, right? And I don't mean to be picking on engineering. I have a lot of engineering
I can name 3
friends.
people who fit exactly what you just said.
Yeah, and I say that because I'm brutally honest and I don't like to sugarcoat anything, and I just want people to actually think about what they are doing, because the fact of the other reality is that when you're 17 and 18 years old and you're expected to pick what you want to do for the rest of your life, you also have to understand that's absurd, because your prefrontal cortex doesn't even fully develop till you're like 25, meaning that your ability to make actual rational, quote-unquote good decisions for yourself is not that great. So at least if you try all these sorts of different things like we were talking about, then you stand a better chance, is all I'm saying. Okay?
And that's, I think, now people would also be wondering why, or how would you be able to do this during COVID, right? Just with the way everyone's very, and even at the beginning of this, where when I first reached out to you and we chatted a bit on FaceTime, let's call it, figuring out that we might, it's like, hey, I don't want to do a COVID test to do this show. But so people are probably wondering, well, how can I go about doing or implementing what you talked about, where it's shadowing people and everything. And I almost want to make a separate YouTube video on this specifically, but I'll give it to you guys for free right now. So it's, I won't say weird, it's like create a podcast, do something along those lines, maybe not to that extent where you need to meet people, reach out to them, sit down, learn everything about them so that it's good and other people could take away things from it, but more so just reach out to people in industries you want to be a part of. At the bare minimum, they'll give you a 30-minute, like Troy, for example, right? Say, because a mutual friend between two of us. Looking, like, just having the conversation on FaceTime with him and I, it was over an hour. And it was, like, half of, like, mostly mental health and then some physical, like, athletic stuff in there. And I'm like, this is incredible. And this is just me emphasizing that I don't want you to say that much to me so I can let it be a real time reaction to what's going on when you do tell me on the show. And I'm like, guys, just reach out to people you admire, reach out to people you want to learn from and you've heard about or heard from. It makes a difference, and it's that easy. It's almost silly how easy it is.
And sometimes the fear stops a lot of people, right? Like, oh, I'm embarrassed to contact whatever, like a surgeon because I'm interested in surgery. Oh, they're not going to have time, they're not going to have this. So it's like right away you have to stop with that because you don't know until you try. And it's very natural for people. It's not even natural, it's actually self-learnt based on who you watch and who you hang around, of like, you know, the negative thoughts that you have. But what I'm trying to say is don't set yourself up for failure by assuming what the outcome is going to be. So it's like you have to just do and try not to think about what the reality is going to be, because it's better to do and try than it is to live in regret, because I'm sure you've heard this saying, but you know, discipline and just doing things weighs ounces compared to regret, which weighs ton. Right? Nothing's worse than like, oh, I'm in this last year of this program and I'm not sure if I really like it. I really wish 4 years ago I just contacted that surgeon to see if I would have, you know what I mean? You just don't want to live like that. No way to live. Right.
And now, how can people go about doing that in this modern day with all the technology and all the helicopter parents and everything being on the phones, and then the social anxiety is kicked up to 11? How do people go about, like, is it just as simple as reaching out to them? Or
Absolutely. It's understanding that you don't have a choice of what the outcome is going to be, right? And, you know, it's funny he's kind of mentioned parents, because unfortunately parents do have a lot of, I'll say, mental power over kids. And I think at the end of the day, like, parents, for the most part, they just want to see their child do well. And, you know, sometimes a parent will say, no, I want you to be a doctor or a lawyer or this or that. You can get a lot of external pressures, but you have to recognize at the end of the day is your mom or your dad, your grandparents only want what's best for you.
Right.
And sometimes that can come across in a very stressful kind of pressing way that doesn't make you feel very good. But once you do succeed in what you truly want to do, then at that point in time, they're going to be proud of you. Right?
Yeah.
And it's kind of like this, it's like
weird.
This double face, right?
It
Because
is weird,
they're just going to say, yeah, you know, be a doctor, but then you don't really like that at all, and you stress yourself out and you waste like 9 years of your life, and you have this kind of resentment towards your parents. Well, then you're going to risk not having a good relationship with the rest of their life. So it's better to, you know, just kind of go against the grain, try while you're young, because sometimes, you know, you guys think that 20 to 25, 30 even is old, but it is really not.
Extremely young.
Yeah, you have to just try and give what you want to do the best shot possible, because then once you do succeed, if you do, well then you'll know for sure even if you do fail, so that's the benefit that you're going to get.
Nice.
And if you do succeed, well then your parents are just going to be talking to everybody and, you know, oh, my daughter or son is so successful, right?
Yeah, doing so and so or whatever they choose to do. And it's a weird, you're right, it is a really weird way of looking at it, because the coin flips once you actually achieve it. You just have to go, it's that initial stage.
Yes,
and
which is very uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Super uncomfortable.
Right.
Yeah, and there was a quote I heard in a movie the other day. I was playing guitar in the movie, just playing to play, and then I paused it and rewound it, and I believe it goes something like, it's better to consider opportunities now. And I think the character was speaking to like a younger character, and they're like around like this demographic that I'm reaching, or trying to reach at least. And it's better to consider opportunities now while you're young than later on when life kind of limits what you're able to do. And now you have kids, you have a mortgage, you have this, and you can't just drop what you're doing and go experience what overseas would be like, because you're living in the same city, or you don't know kind of what you want to do, or haven't, like you said, tried enough things.
So that's a very, very true quote for sure.
Now, when you were in school, what was an experience that stood out to you that you remember when somebody said, define your post-secondary experience?
Ooh, I wouldn't really say there was just one, but the one that comes to mind right away is I did a placement in Florida. So I was there for a few months, because originally I wanted to work with professional athletes. So I did. I worked alongside Dr. Bain. He is a sports chiropractor, or still is the sports chiropractor for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And so I worked with multiple different high-level athletes in the professional world, so tennis players, basketball players, football players, whatever. Like, this is what I want to do. But the moment that I really learned, wow, maybe I need to reconsider, and again, this is where trying comes into play. I was at the University of South Florida, and there was this athlete that kept getting injured, so he kept getting a cyst in his hamstring, and what the surgeons would do, they just kept removing it, whatever. And so they let me assess the player to see what was going on, and I figured it out. What was happening was his hip was raised up a little bit too high. So if you don't really know anatomy, essentially the hamstring in the back attaches to the sit bone, and that's the same bone as like the crest of your hip up here. Okay, so it was actually shifted up. So what that did was it created a lot of tension. So I just kind of manipulated it back down, whatever, and he just couldn't believe the difference he felt. But what I thought was a very good thing for this athlete, well, it felt to the surgeons and the healthcare providers there that I was stepping on their toes a little bit. And I was like, you know what, maybe I just need to take a step back, master my skills even more, and that's when I continued into manual osteopathy, and then I also did traditional Chinese medicine and acupuncture as well.
Nice, we'll get into that.
And I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to master my skills, and then maybe later on, if the timing's right, I'll go back to into that. So for me, that was kind of, I would say, the transition and kind of a pivotal moment, because sometimes you get so caught up in what you want. And what you sometimes have to do is just have that end goal, but whatever path you take to get there doesn't really matter. As long as you kind of have that end goal, whatever path feels right, you just have to go with the flow to because you never know how you're going to end up getting there, right?
Right. It's never one set area.
Yeah.
Or way of getting there.
Yeah.
That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
So how did that placement come about? That's like is a 4-year program?
Again, 4-year program in athletic therapy.
Nice.
So that was between my 3rd year and 4th year placement. Yeah, so that was again like reaching out, speaking with different people, and because I knew I wanted to do it, so I just kind of brainstormed. Okay, how do I get what I want? So that's another thing you want to take your mindset to, instead of like like for example, the best way to explain this is with money, because people kind of understand that, because a lot of time what people will say is, oh, I can't afford this. Or I can't afford that. But really the question you should be asking yourself is, how can I afford this? What can I do to afford this? So that way you take yourself from a defeated standpoint in a frequency that doesn't allow you to attract that into your life.
Right, you gave up before you even tried.
Exactly. Now you're getting into a problem set kind of mindset where you are trying to figure out and therefore attract solutions into your life. So for me, I'm like, oh, I want to work in the professional field, but you know what, I'm a girl, and you know, I look a certain way, so because I have been told that before, by the way, that's why I say that. I was told by a certain individual that by the way I look, they wouldn't want me in the professional world and stuff like that. Yeah, so that's still that's a thing, right? Distraction, basically, to the athletes. I'll use that word from what they said. So
it's pretty unprofessional.
But that's the reality of life, and you know what? I have empathy for these people because they truly do believe that, and I'm not gonna really, you know what? I'm not gonna give energy because
that's the best way to deal with it.
I'm really not gonna give 5 minutes of energy to something that isn't gonna matter 5 years from now when I accomplish that goal, anyways. Yeah. But so what I was saying was that I didn't listen to those people, and I'm just like, you know what, how do I accomplish this? And because of that solution oriented mindset that I got into, I took care and accomplished that and fell into that.
Wow. So can you explain, for people who might not know, manual osteopathy? Am I saying it right?
Yeah, manual osteopathy.
Okay.
Yeah, not that good for you.
I read that so many times.
Manual osteopathy, or
I listened to it, so I was like, okay, I need to nail this. So that's awesome.
You did.
Thank you. How did that how did you steer into making that decision, and then how did that come to fruition? Tell me about that.
So how I was, using your words, like steered into that pathway was in athletic therapy, most of my professors were actually manual osteopaths. And so after shadowing a ton of different people, I really did come to the conclusion, like, yes, manual osteopathy is for me, and that's what I'm going to go into. But what manual osteopathy is, because many people have no idea what that is. It's just, it's really surprising to me, because once people try it, they're like, I can't believe I haven't heard of this before. Like, it helps me so much. And next thing you know, I end up seeing everybody in their family, right? And actually, just an interesting story, when I was shadowing an osteopath as well, I asked him that very question, like, why don't people know more about osteopathy if it's so successful and has such a high success rate? And he said, well, that's just it. We really do rely on word of mouth. And because of that, what ends up happening is, you know, the mom knows her mom and whatever, and then this sister, and then this friend, and then it just grows in that little bubble, because osteopaths typically, like manual osteopaths, don't have to do a lot of advertising. Right. And because of that, it's just that little group that knows about it, and it's not well known. Right. And I'm like, okay, that's a very interesting way to look at it, because oftentimes the answer this individual gave me, he said, I decided to become a manual osteopath because when I was shadowing chiropractors or whatever, when they have a troubled client that they just can't help, that's when they refer. So like a manual osteopath typically is like the last resort practitioner that often get referrals from other practitioners because they just can't help them. And so to me, I was like, you know what, I want to be that for people, because I love figuring out problems. I love the detective work of it. So because I constantly use my mind all day to solve problems, because it doesn't matter whether I treat 12 back injuries that day. Every single person I treat is different. Really? And that is why it's so interesting to me, because I'm constantly using my cognitive skills to figure out what it is.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
that's pretty cool.
To summarize again what osteopathy is, because people I'm sure are still confused because I keep going back and forth, but it's like if you were to take a mechanical engineer, okay, so we're like mechanical engineers of the body. So we take a look at not only the muscles and the bones, but we take a look at the actual joint and the alignment and the pressure within the joint and the ligaments and the tension within the ligaments, the muscles and how they activate and how they fire, how they're stabilizing or if they're overactive or underactive. We even take a look at the organs, because organ restriction, by the way, can cause things like back pain, shoulder pain, neck pain, digestive issues, even anxiety, depression. So, and cranial bones as well. So a lot of people don't really realize the body has like a natural innate movement. So as we it's called inhalation and exhalation.
Okay.
So essentially as we like inhale, and it's not exactly lined up, but basically as you inhale, you see how when you inhale you kind of expand out a little bit, so literally the body is expanding out, then as we exhale it kind of contracts back in.
Goes back in
and
forward.
The brain, the skull rather, kind of has this like jellyfish type of movement. So manual osteopaths have the knowledge and the skill set to actually gently manipulate the cranial bones and the alignments, and that's often why we have such success with migraines, headaches, post-concussion syndrome, even during concussions, to help people through those stages.
Wow.
So yeah, it's just we really do treat the whole body, nerves, blood flow, everything.
So moving on to that a bit. So there's this book this buddy of mine named Dan told me about a while back about so he's a movement and fitness coach in Ottawa at this place called Human 2.0, and sweet place, really nice guy. I've worked with him before, and when he did the show he mentioned this book by Katie Bauman. I believe it was about the importance of movement in our lives. And I'm not sure.
Motion is lotion.
Motion is lotion, yeah. Oh, that's the best. And it's one of those things that I don't think a lot of people,
especially in our culture,
in
especially North American culture, holy moly,
no, there's no understanding, or not as much as there should be, of why is movement so important. People put, I believe though, people put so much emphasis on they need to exercise, they need to get in shape, look a certain way, feel a certain way, and the anxiety of that drives them into a hole. But what I've begun to learn, and then this will come into my question, how movement is more important than exercise itself. Like there's a very different thing between the two, and I think people and society more so is focused on the exercise of it, where, oh, if I drive 20 minutes to work 8 hours a day, 9 hours a day sitting at a desk, drive 20 minutes home, I need to do my hour and a half workout will make up for that. Of like go exercise, whether I'm doing it semi-right or not.
Or sometimes they use the excuse they're too tired to even do it in the first place.
That's another one. But, so how important is movement, or should movement be in our lives?
Okay, so that's just not like a very simple question, because to live a healthy lifestyle in general, you have to be able to move, because like our bodies are designed to move, period. I treat a lot of people who have pain simply because of the fact they don't move enough, really. Okay, so but it's not just about movement, it's about nutrition. How well do you sleep? What are the relationships like in your life? Like it's a whole kind of spectrum. It's not just, if it really was just as simple as movement, things would do a lot better. But you also have to understand and appreciate the understanding that exercise, even though it's good, it is a stress.
It is a stress.
So you have to kind of, to a certain extent, understand what phase you are in your life. Because movement is always going to be important. Even walking 10 minutes a day, and there's tons of studies that support that, even walking 10 minutes a day really helps health-wise, like to decrease blood pressure, all that kind of stuff, right? So if you're going through a very high stress of your life, you may have had a family member who's experiencing something like cancer, heaven forbid, or your child is experiencing troubles in school, or things aren't really working out with your spouse, or whatever the case may be, or you have a new job, you just got promoted, whatever. You have to understand that there's going to be dips and highs of stress in your life. So sometimes you may only be able to go for a 20-minute walk or a 10-minute walk. And like you were saying, the difference between movement versus intense exercise, because sometimes you can actually surpass what's called a stress threshold. So basically what that means, and I spoke about this in my podcast, right, is we all have a threshold of once we pass stress at that threshold, all of a sudden the stress just becomes overwhelming, and it will actually target a weak link in our body. Because then all of a sudden you're going through so much stress in your life, and you're not recovering from that, and you're just so close underneath it, and boom, all of a sudden you blow out your back and you have back pain. But really what you should have done is maybe scaled back your training a little bit to accommodate for that, so you can just make sure that you're able to move properly, so that you don't, next thing you know, do a deadlift that one time wrong with improper form. So that's what blows your disc out and gives you an issue that then you now have to take months to recover and rehab, right? So definitely like how you said, that difference between movement and exercise, because that's, I think, the understanding people have to take into consideration, is that you don't just have to go. And sometimes movement can just mean stretching or doing yoga or meditating and using your diaphragm properly, or, you know, stuff like that, so that you don't stress your body out too much.
Right, we can only deal with so much of it, for sure. That threshold, like you said.
Yeah.
How important is using your diaphragm correctly?
Yeah.
Now, but not just for the yoga exercises, specifically for breathing or meditation, but in general.
Totally. So, to understand appreciation for that, I'm just going to give you guys a quick anatomy lesson.
Sweet.
Okay, so for those who do not know what the diaphragm is, so we actually, by the way, we have 5 diaphragms in our body. Okay, right off the bat.
Okay.
But the diaphragm you're talking about is the thoracic diaphragm, which is right underneath the rib cage. So essentially it wraps around the rib cage, and it's a dome shape. So it's like an umbrella basically right underneath. And this attaches to the lower parts of your back. Okay, so that's the attachment there, and it attaches to the outsides of your ribs. And essentially, as you breathe, when you inhale properly, so when your belly goes out, the diaphragm should descend and flatten out to pull on your lungs, so that you suck air in, basically.
Right.
Okay, and then because of the pressure difference from the inside to the lungs to the outside, you automatically exhale. That's how it is. So if now, say you're stressed and you're breathing like this, you're no longer breathing with that muscle. There's a couple things that are happening, and I'll just say it very, very simply, because there's many things. But the 2 main things that happen is, A, you are now using your secondary breathing muscles, which are your neck muscles. And you're breathing 20 to 24,000 times a day with your neck muscles. Your neck aren't designed to do that. So now you are creating neck tension and neck pain, neck discomfort. So that's number 1.
Wow.
So you're potentially throwing off your neck, creating headaches for yourself, causing shoulder issues, causing nerve impingements, all sorts of things, okay?
Wow.
And then the other thing is, now this movement here the diaphragm does, what do you think that does to your organs? Well, it's descending your organs, it's squishing your organs a little bit, then lifting them back up and squish. So it's actually a natural massage your organs get. So that creates that kind of fluidity and keeps that fluidity, because if you do not have enough movement, if you have, on the other end of the spectrum, too much movement, if there was direct trauma, you have food sensitivities or environmental toxins, that all creates inflammation in the organ system, which then creates restrictions, which it's just like the same as if you bunch up your shirt and really pull it tight. Well, you can no longer pull your arm up. But if you don't have that tension, well, then all of a sudden you're able to move. So that's just like 2 small things. So it's just like, if you breathe improperly, you are really setting yourself up for back pain, neck pain. Like it's amazing actually how important breathing properly is.
Now, how long does it take to learn, would you say, to breathe properly? And like drill it into a habit, I should say.
So it depends on the person. And what I mean by that, it depends how aware you are of your body. So I find generally the more aware you are of your body, meaning you have done some sort of exercise, or you're an athlete, or you're more aware of where your body is in space. Typically those people learn it a little bit faster, and therefore, you know, don't have as long of a learning curve.
Right.
Whereas people who have no idea of body awareness, like they don't really understand how to even activate breathing with their belly first off, then they typically have to stick with it a lot more and consistently practice just to create that habit. So like we're talking, that can be anywhere from like a couple weeks to potentially years, depending on where the person is in their health
They're
journey.
unaware.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, really, like self-improvement, self-development, I'm sure you're learning this.
Yes.
That's an everyday, the rest of your life sort of
thing.
Like that's a commitment. It's just like you can't go to the gym, do 10 push-ups and expect to be ripped. Right?
No.
Like it's a dedication that you have to have, and the self-development that you give to yourself is the same thing.
Right. It's the, like you said a while back, the discipline. And I think discipline paired with this other thing, consistency, those two things will get
Very
you
powerful.
Anywhere you want.
Yeah.
It's silly. Like on days you feel like crap and you just need to get in and you don't want to work out or you don't want to move, or you've had such a long day at the office, you want to just go home and lie down. It's like, no, dude, just go for a walk, clear your head, get some fresh air.
Instead of eating emotionally. That's the other thing, especially more so for women.
Yeah.
More so for women, it's common, and the only reason why I say that is because like I talk with people all day as well when I'm treating them, and yeah, that's the one thing you almost have to like unlearn, especially if that's a habit that you observed from your mother or your grandmother or whatever, or even your father or whatnot. Right, is that sometimes you have to really understand, okay, why am I doing these things? And then understanding what the actual reason is, because people are scared a lot of the time to actually even reflect. And what I've noticed as a clinical practitioner is people don't know why they have pain.
Right.
And once I go through the detailed history, like have you ever had a bad fall in your tailbone? Have you had a concussion? Like any organ issues? Like I start asking really in-depth question that most times other places don't ask them. And then they start to say, oh shoot, like when I was 17 years old, I had a very bad fall on my tailbone. Actually, you know what? I actually broke my tailbone now that I think about it. Oh shoot, maybe that's why now that I'm 40 I have back pain. And it's just like, whoa, to not even be aware of that. And then now imagine for something that's so kind of in your face because it's pain, right? It's hard to ignore. But now, so imagine the subtle things people do, like demean themselves, or always thinking negative thoughts, or whatever, or not actually appreciating who they are, or not really thinking that they deserve something. Where do you think that stems from? Well, it's the same exact thing. It's just like people, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable temporarily for the long-term gain that you understand what is going on, because people are scared to do that. People are scared, wow, you know what? My mom messed me up when I was a kid. Or this one experience I had with said teacher actually really like affected my confidence as an adult. But you don't really recognize that unless you're willing to reflect and go deep to understand.
Deep reflection,
Yeah, and you know what, that can have an effect on their pain, because I will treat some people, especially in the shoulder, and I'm going to do a podcast of this in the near future, but the shoulder actually will hold a lot of emotions, and I have had a handful of people come in to see me, and I'm asking all the questions, this and that, basically we come to the conclusion like, okay, why do you actually have the pain? So then I start asking them emotional questions or things that have happened, like, what has happened around the time when you first felt that, like whether that be stress or whatever, and then they start thinking, oh shoot, yeah, maybe this is emotional, because people don't really have an appreciation that emotions have a huge effect. Now think about it. If you're about to, all of a sudden you're daydreaming, right? And you all of a sudden you see red lights in front of you, you're crap, and you automatically hit the brakes, and you had that jolt of adrenaline, and you feel it right in your gut. Well, that has affected you right there, right? So now imagine an emotion that's just dwelling inside your body. And I find, and I don't know this to be certain, but this is from what I think and I feel, and based on my intuition and treating clients that I have, is the body sometimes, not always, will keep emotions, in the knee or the shoulder or whatever, or the back, to protect the mental health from you developing unhealthy thoughts.
Whoa.
Yeah, right.
That's wild.
Right, because mental health is such a huge thing, and unfortunately, suicide sometimes is a result of people's thoughts, right, based on certain things. So sometimes people will develop cysts or things like that, again, based on what I have observed. And I think, again, it is the body trying to protect this space, right? Because at the end of the day, we're still driven to just survive.
Right.
Right? So if your body can, give pain to your shoulder as opposed to affecting your mental health, it will do that.
Wow.
What an interesting thought, eh?
Yeah, it's just thinking back to at the beginning what you said with thinking of how the shoulder and how that could be connected, and then you asked one emotional question, then you got more out of that than 10 physical questions. And then that almost made me think of, because now I'm starting to reflect on injuries I've had in the last 6 to 8 months, where I'm like, hey, I really had a bad back for a couple months, but I didn't really do much to it. I lied on a lacrosse ball for a bit, foam rolled a bit, and I'm pretty big on that recovery stuff. I'm still new to doing it correctly, let's say. But recovery is serious with me, whereas thinking about it and how connected our body is with emotions, I always used to think of it as something, I'm sure I'm not the only one, it is something completely separate. There's your emotions, your mental state, and then how your physical state and everything is affected differently. Oh, I'm hurt my knee, but I can still feel good about my day, but I would have never thought that would all connect. That's
and not all the time,
yeah.
Right? But I'm just saying it definitely is something that you have to be aware of, because it is possible.
Yeah. That's fascinating.
Yeah. I'm telling you, we haven't even scratched the surface of what our bodies actually do. It's phenomenal, really. I learn something new every day treating my clients, because that's literally all I do.
Yeah.
Quite literally.
Do you have a fascinating experience with a client, or almost a breakthrough moment with one?
I've had many.
Yeah.
I've had many. I've had people cry in my office because they finally feel validated that someone understands what they're going through. So just real quick, best example for that. And again, I've had many, but along the same lines. So this one client, since she can remember, she's had vertigo. And for those who don't know what vertigo is, it's basically the feeling of being dizzy. Okay? And she's been experiencing this from when she was young to now. And we're talking 40 years. Okay? That's a long time to experience that.
That's quite
she
a while,
saw specialists and doctors and this and that. She's been to all sorts of different clinics. And basically everyone was telling her it's all in your head. And so as fate would have it, I end up, treating this certain individual's husband. And she was asking me questions because she was a little bit, I would say, skeptical. Yeah. Rightfully so, because of all that she's experienced, and many people who say, I can help you, I can help you, I can help you. Exactly. And so she starts asking me questions left, right, and center, and I answered and almost nailed to what she described every single one.
Oh, wow.
And so she is very interested. And so again, manual osteopaths, we're very in tune. So I just touched her head, and I'm like, okay, so your head is literally spinning this way. I'm like, do you feel like you're always spinning to the left? And she looks at me, she's like, yeah. And next thing you know, from going through different assessments and this and that, what we discovered was when she was 4 years old, she was in a motor vehicle accident. That was back in the day when you didn't have to wear seatbelts, right? So she was in a motor vehicle accident. What basically happened is she was thrown to the ground, thrown up to the ceiling of the car, and then thrown back down to the floor. She was 4. And so now imagine what that did to this poor developing skull. Right? It actually changed the positioning of her skull bones. And so we have a fluid inside our skull called cerebral spinal fluid.
Yes.
And what that fluid does is essentially it gives buoyancy to the brain. You know, it's basically allowing it to float inside our skull, but it gives it nutrients, protection, whatnot. And essentially this will flow up and down the spinal cord about 4 to 6 times a day. And it does that from that pump mechanism. Remember I was telling you about that jellyfish type of thing? And so
that's the system that causes that.
Exactly. Okay, so as this is kind of pumping through, that is what pumps the cerebral spinal fluid up and down. But now imagine her skull's reshaped. How well do you think that pump's actually going to be working? Well,
maybe 40%.
I don't know, to be honest, but she had enough pressure inside her head from the buildup of cerebral spinal fluid that was creating pressure and giving her symptoms of this dizziness, what people described as quote-unquote vertigo. And so what I did was just gently manipulated and rearranged, for lack of better term, her skull to then make it work properly, and all of a sudden, boom, within 3 treatments, after 40 plus years of experiencing that, gone. And now I only see her about once a year for maintenance.
Just to make sure everything's still...
Yeah.
Well, congratulations. I'm like, that's incredible.
Yeah, but you have to like, I appreciate you saying that, but like, I'm a huge believer. Like, it's not me. Like, I'm definitely happy I'm able to do that, but I'm really just a catalyst.
Yeah.
And many osteopaths, like, we're really just catalysts to this treatment, because it's literally the person's body that's telling me what they need, and I'm just doing it.
You just do it.
Yes.
Right. You're That's wild. That's, oh man, I never.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't really.
Experience.
Yeah, and there's been many like that. So, like, the other craziest one that I can think of just right now off the top of my head is, you know, this term sciatica? A lot of people loosely throw this around. I have another podcast on that, because there's a difference between sciatica versus piriformis syndrome and whatever. But basically, this lady had numbness, tingling, and burning going down her leg into her toes. That's what true sciatica is.
Okay.
And she had x-rays and this and that. Nothing really confirmed that, you know, it really was a disc, or there was a slight issue, but nothing that should have caused the pain that she was feeling. Right. And so I'm assessing her this and that, and I'm like, you know what, it's your organs. Like, there's an incredible amount of tension in your large intestine that's compressing the nerves there. And so when we're actually doing treatment and trying to alleviate that tension, she'll feel shooting pain down into her leg. And a lot of people would find that, what? Like, do the organs have anything to do with the nerve that's right in the back of your glute? Yeah. Well, think of the relation, right? If you look at an actual skeleton, you pull up a picture of, like, the skeleton and the pelvis, and if you see the sciatic nerve and then the organs, like, they're very closely related. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, that's another interesting one for you.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Man. That stuff's fascinating. Mm-hmm. Wow. And you're able to, and now it's similar where it's maintenance stuff whenever you see them, or?
Yeah, and the nature with their job, though, they're a nurse, so it's very demanding physically.
Yeah, it sounds like
so it's kind of tough there sometimes when you can't really give up what you have to do just to survive. Yeah. So it's like kind of doing band-aid work just to kind of keep her going, unfortunately.
Keep the wound. Oof.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's clear to me that you're very well, like, you're good at what you do.
It's because I love what I do. Yeah.
That's the secret.
It really is. Yeah. It's about, truthfully, to be having what we were saying earlier, is that, you know, high school is, you know, a stepping stone, or should be a stepping stone into understanding what you want in life, because sometimes college isn't going to be for everybody.
Nope.
You know, I had to go to college for what I did, but, you know, if you can figure out a way to monetize and make money on something that you love,
you got it made.
Yes, you really do.
How did you, like, how the business of heat come into fruition?
So that's actually one thing that I want to offer eventually one day, is to teach healthcare providers actually how to run a business, because we're not taught that at all. True. I was very lucky, however, again, like, if you kind of set in your mind what you want, you just attract experiences into your life.
Yeah, you put that energy out, it comes to you.
You do, like, it's just so true. It's just like, like look it up. People say the law of attraction, whatever you want to
it's real.
Call it. It absolutely is real. And I was blessed with a phenomenal professor who's a millionaire himself, great businessman, and he taught us over 200 specific business lectures of what we need to do as a business owner to succeed. And I've implemented virtually everything that he said, and obviously too, like, I'm very driven in my own sense. I've done a lot of, like, I've read so many books. Yeah. And, like, you have no idea. Well, I should say listen to so many audiobooks, because I'm very auditory. Yeah. Again, it's all about being self-aware. Like, I'm not a fan of reading. I don't read for enjoyment anymore. Unfortunately, college just destroyed that for me.
Yeah, it has that effect.
Listening, so that's why I love podcasts. Yeah. Listening has really been a game changer for me. So because of that, I was able to read a ton of books. But yeah, like, I seriously went into my business already knowing what my business was going to look like.
Nice.
So I never really had the the feelings of fear, which, you know, my mom in particular, love my mom. But she was like, where are you going to come up with all this money? Like, you need X amount of money per month just to pay your bills. And it's like, Mom, money is everywhere. It's everywhere. It's easy to acquire, actually.
Yeah.
You just have to figure out that stream. Like it really, it's everywhere. And that's a common misconception people have. It is like, sometimes depending on the mindset that you were raised about money, you either feel negatively against money or you feel positively against money, depending on how you're raised. And unfortunately, like, my father was amazing with that. Like, I was never told, and I don't want to sound like all spoiled, but I was never told no. Like, I was always able to do whatever I wanted. Like, I was very, very grateful in that regard. So because I grew up like that, I grew up with the reality in my mind that money is always there, it's easy to get, all that kind of stuff. You just have to work hard to do that. And so I just made that happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so then you were able to take kind of the lessons you had learned learning business from this professor and able to transfer it into
and that's just what it was. It was a very easy transition for me, and it's just like I knew what my end goal was, and I'm still going towards that end goal. And now it's just you just start to again attract different things into your life that will just help you to go down that path even further to accomplish that goal. That's really all it is. Like, it seems like it's such a general answer, but it's I don't want to say it's easy, but it's that simple.
It's simple, not easy. Yeah, because you said it, you're like, you just got to work hard.
Yeah.
If you know. Yeah. And I'm like, it's the hard work. It's the problem. Yeah. People want to jump that. They want like the next quickest thing.
I think it's because people don't enjoy the process.
Because they don't love what they do.
Yeah.
I think that's a big issue.
It could be for sure, but it's just like, you have to be so into your process and just love what you're doing or try to figure out as best you can, because it's a long road to just do something for money or to just do something for a certain goal that's so superficial when it doesn't fulfill you in any way.
Right.
Because you have to recognize too, unfortunately, people will think money will solve problems and money will make them happy or whatever, but the reality of it is, and it's funny that we're even speaking of this now, because I spoke to a close friend recently about this, because he's like, oh, if I had this, I wouldn't be in this predicament. And it's just like, no, you would be in this exact predicament. It would just be even more so, because what money does is it exposes things. So if you're not happy to the core, you'll be even worse off if you have money.
Right, it's a bigger scale almost.
Yeah. So it's just like, what you have to understand is you have to do so much self-development and understand who you are as a person and be content with yourself, so that once you do get there, then it's just second nature, and it's not so overwhelming that your problems end up becoming a bigger scale. Because the reality is and you can read this in books. One of my favorite writers is Brian Tracy. He's a really good writer. He wrote The New Psychology of Achievement, and that's like one of the first books I ever read in terms of self-development. And I've probably listened to that book around like 11 times. Yeah, and one quote that he basically says in that is, you have to understand who you are as a person, and I'm paraphrasing again, but you basically have to understand who you are as a person, because if you don't, then you are just going to make more money and just get a license to have bigger problems. You solving these little problems now just gives you a license to solve bigger problems later on. Yeah, so that's why it's so important to have that solution-oriented mindset.
Interesting. This is one that I know for a fact I'm going to go back and listen, not just to edit, but to like listen to it for like learning purposes as well.
Because that's really my intention, right? Like I said earlier, like it's so cool how you do this, because this is knowledge I wish I had when I was 17 or 18.
Yeah, me too.
Right? You know? So.
And I think my girlfriend says it best. She says, like, because she's studying to become a teacher, and I asked her why, and I always feel when I go like, oh, why are you studying this? Why are you learning that? Right? With post-secondary school, everyone gives kind of like a, well, make money, or because my parents. She's like, well, I struggled, so I want to help people not struggle.
Exactly.
And I was like, it was simple, but I was like,
yeah, but that's such a beautiful...
It is. It needs to be.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful place it's coming from, because it's really coming from with a purpose.
Yes.
Right? Because...
It has to be.
Yeah, it's a deep purpose, right? It's kind of like how I found what I wanted to do, because I wanted to be that person that helped people get through a difficult point in their life with their pain, right? And your girlfriend, she sounds like she wants to be that teacher that makes such an impact on students that it, makes them feel better about themselves, and that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to see how it goes in. But what you have your own show, right? How'd you get How'd you get into podcasting, Nichelle? Let me know.
Okay, so that's a very long-winded question.
Oh,
so again, I'm a business owner. I try to think out of the box because the thing is, when you're an entrepreneur, right now, to be honest, I am an employee in my own business. But a true entrepreneur has people working for them. That is an actual business.
Right.
Right? And so I'm trying to do all that I can to set myself up for my future goals, because ideally what I truly want in the end, because I love treating my clients and all that kind of stuff, but the fact of the matter is, because it's so physical, I won't be able to do that forever.
Right.
But I then want to convert to still continue to give my knowledge to others by traveling and teaching around the world, whether that be business or the skills that I have learned manually, because because I'm so in tune, and I think I've been doing it for so young. I don't just think, oh, I have to do this technique for this specific injury.
Yeah.
For me, I'm like, how do the tissues feel? What does this person need from me? And I want to teach that aspect of it, because it really is a different approach to treatment. So so that is why I thought podcasts would be a good way to reach a different worldwide like potentially like a worldwide audience, right? So I want to be known everywhere over the world. I wanted to start putting those frequencies out into the universe to attract that. So I started at first interviewing people like you have yourself, and then I thought, you know what, I want to focus on just explaining what osteopathy is a little bit more. And then that's why recently, if you've noticed, if you listen to my podcast, I've transitioned to just explaining about what certain things are, because people do grasp different perspectives once they listen to my podcast about why they have their injuries.
Absolutely.
And so I've kind of graduated certain things, and I'm just playing around with it, and I honestly believe it's better to just do. And even though it's not perfect, it's better just to do it, because then as you go, you will learn. And that's why I've kind of graduated slowly. I think I just released my 65th podcast yesterday.
Yeah, congratulations.
And I've been pretty consistent. I've been doing it weekly, and I'm just trying to bring value to people at the end of the day. And I'm just trying to, use that to attract other future goals into my life.
And I think that is so cool that you're doing that. And I know of maybe a handful of people in the city who have one. But I mean a handful, not just who have one, who do one every couple months when all their buddies are together. No, it's like consistent, doing it for the right reasons,
Again, like you said,
putting in the work.
discipline and consistency.
Yeah. It's like I'm trying to do at least one a month, but then it gets tricky, especially when you reach out to people who don't follow you or don't know you. Then they just, who knows, especially depending on who they are, if they're famous or what their background's like, or if they even use Instagram that much or Twitter and stuff. So, but I think the strategy for it, at least especially for young people looking to build a network and make friends, even
like-minded friends.
Like-minded friends, which I think I'm going to use that more now when people ask me about, well, what's the benefit of doing the show? I'm like, well, like-minded friends, because now there's people I talk to every couple days that are just, they're thinking on a different frequency, and it's fascinating to get on the same frequency of that, or even just peek at it, and then you come back to this world that you're used to living in. And I even think since starting the show, I've lost friends, but had a chance to reflect on the friendships I've lost, and gone, well, this isn't that big of a loss.
Everyone can come with you, but not everyone can go with you.
Interesting.
It's and you know what, like that saying, which I can never remember how it goes, but essentially said, some people will come into your life for a very short period of time, but I don't think at the end of the day anything is a waste of time, because you always learn something. There's always a gift to be learned from every situation, even if you perceive it to be negative. Right? So, and it's up to you to understand what that lesson is. But I really want to jump into that a little bit further, what you just said about, the friendships, because in high school, the people that we're talking to right now, they could be experiencing these issues right now. Especially, you have to understand, if you have a lot of goals for yourself, most people, unfortunately, do not have that mindset
Weird.
Yeah, and you know what? And it's because most people aren't visionaries. And you know what? It's so fine and dandy for someone like me. Like, I'm a visionary through and through.
Yeah,
like, I
absolutely.
I live definitely in the present moment. I really try to be conscious of that because I know I have the tendency to always try to live in the future because I'm very goal-oriented.
Yeah.
But you know what? When you surround yourself with people who are not like that, you have to understand that these people will bring you down. So if you want something phenomenal for your life, you have to think, who are the 5 closest friends in my circle, and what are they doing? Because there are many, and it's not just me saying this, there are many, many successful people, and what in this definition I'm going to define as successful people, I'm saying millionaires and billionaires, and you can listen to almost any interview with these individuals, and they will say, show me your 5 closest friends and I'll show you exactly what your future is going to look like. Yeah. And you know what? And it's so true because I don't know, like, because I think I heard one of the podcasts, you went somewhere to Australia or something, or no, you didn't go to Australia. That was another individual.
Yes, Jen did.
Yes, you were like backpacking, or you were going on different experiences.
Yeah, it was Europe.
Yeah, and right,
we back and forth with those,
you learn different things from different cultures, and now all of a sudden you come back and you realize, wow, like, these people who have never left Sudbury have such a narrow-minded view on life. And you know what? You have to understand, like, if you just want to be here and you just want to get by in life and you just want to provide for your family, there's nothing wrong with that. If that's what makes you happy, you want to make $40,000 a year and be the coach of your kid's soccer team and do stuff like that, and that's what makes you happy, good job. Like, that's awesome. But if you want, like, to do something more, and I say that in quotations, air quotations here for those who are just listening to the podcast, like, if you want to do something more through life, you have to recognize you can't do those things. You can't be around people who only think like that.
Yeah, you have to be around people who want to do, if not the same, similar things, and like you said, like, I want to go somewhere new every year, and I want to leave the country every single year until I've gone to them all, and then we'll start again. But it's a crazy thing to think too, especially now with COVID. But anyways, I have friends of mine who haven't gone anywhere other than, like, the U.S. and Canada, but then at the same time they want to do it. They have this drive to do it, and they're like, hey, I want to go here, I want to go here, like, next summer let's go here, and then COVID is, and hey, let's go here. Then it's, staying away, like you said, finding the people where it's not bad that they want to live a certain way.
Exactly.
You can respect that, but it's not going to help you get to where you want to go.
Especially if it doesn't align with your goals.
Yeah, especially then.
Yeah, absolutely. Because, it's not like, and I don't want to make a point of this, like, we're not downing anybody, but it's a serious, sometimes uncomfortable reflection you have to really do, because, it's not a popular decision. It's not a popular decision to say to your buddies, no, I am not coming out tonight because I have things to accomplish. And this is what's called herd manipulation or group think. Okay? So what happens, and it's a survival tactic. So say you have your closest buddies, and they're like, we're all going out tonight and we want you to be there, but you're like, no man, like, I have to go and I have to do this podcast, and I have to prepare for this podcast more, like, I got to do this stuff, because you, in your mind, you see your vision and you know what you have to do to get there, but they are looking at you, and that's a threat. You are now giving off behaviors that are not like everybody else. And so you have to understand that that is called, it's not herd immunity. I'm probably thinking that because of, like, everybody. It might be herd mentality, but there's a specific name for it. But basically you have to recognize that is going to be the natural instinct that people are going to do, because it's literally a survival tactic. Like, when you start displaying characteristics that aren't of the group norm, then that is they will literally try to get you to, oh no, just come out,
even if what you're doing isn't wrong.
Yes, but they perceive it to be wrong because it's not what the group is doing. So it's very important to recognize that. And to be honest, I have a very small group of friends, a very incredibly small group, and I have a phenomenal partner in my life, and we support each other.
That's amazing.
Because he came from Italy, so he's Canadian, but he came from Italy. Yes, my partner is Italian, and so he has recognized since he's moved to Canada, he's lost an incredible amount of friends. And you can tell probably the energy that I have. Like, I'm like, yeah, you got to do this, this, this. So he's improved so much. And I'm so proud of him because now he's doing so many things and he's achieving his goals and whatnot. Amazing. But we recently had a conversation about this. And yeah, he's lost. I'm going to put in quotations, lost friends, because when you do reflection, you realize these relationships were based on partying and all these sorts of things that weren't necessarily quote unquote real.
Right, not the best foundation.
Yeah, exactly. And that's oftentimes in high school what your friendships are based on.
Yeah, now that I think about it,
yeah, and so it's just something to be aware of. I'm not saying you can't continue to be friends with people in high school, because I have, a very small group that I still am. But it's just the fact of the matter is people can't always go with you. They can come with you, but not everybody could. And the other reality is something to just be prepared for those people, who do have a lot of aspirations, is that sometimes initially the people who support you at the beginning are the people who will bash you and try to tear you down later.
Yeah.
And that is a very sad thing, and you may be thinking to yourself, like, wow, I just can't see my best friend doing that.
Oh, no,
But you have to understand jealousy is a real thing, and you know what? Unfortunately, that's sometimes inevitable, but you also have to think about it again as a gift. You have to turn it around. What's the gift? What's the lesson here? And obviously that person really never was that supportive of you to begin with.
Especially I have one where a friend of mine, I'm going to leave his name out of it, but people who know me, like you said, like close-knit friends, people will know this person, but it was an intimidation of what I'm doing. And that, on top of like it's being aware, and then the energy you're giving off where I might not feel I'm an intimidating friend to have. And I like to feel I'm pretty like easygoing, adaptable, whatever we're doing, let's do it, let's have fun, 110%, but it's like, hey, let's do this. But I'm similar to you in terms of visionary. Like, I don't see it as like episode 1, okay, I want to get to, what am I doing? It's, all right, what do I... Exactly, the process is fun. Like, this is fun, this is the process of it, and then getting to that vision where, and then accomplishing the goal of the show so that people are able to now understand what to do and how to make the best versions of themselves, like right away, not I'm in my mid-30s, let's start now, or I'm in my early 20s.
There's nothing wrong with starting at that point in time,
because it's better to start than not at all, right?
But yeah, I get what you're saying.
That.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, it's being aware of those people, and I don't know how, and believe me, it's hard to, because there are obviously like red flags that go up with friends. But because you love them, you've been friends for like 10, 15 years, you want that relationship to stay.
But unfortunately, the relationship and the foundation that you created that friendship into the first place is no longer the same now that you are improving and self-developing and changing. Right? So that false expectation that you have to maintain friends with people that, you have to maintain friendships with the people based on who you used to be, it's kind of impossible if you think about it, unless that person is also changing with you.
Which I do, now that saying that, I'm sure you can think of, and I can think of a few people in our lives that they fit that mold. Like, I've been friends with them for 8 years, but they're also on the same, like, they want to invest in this, they want to learn that, they want to build this, they want to try that, travel here, do that. So I'm like, man, I'm working 2 jobs, figuring this out, going through school again, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to scrape you out of the fun pile of people to hang out with, but it's, So, you do a lot of things, you have your YouTube channel, you educate people, you make the time to come on my show again, grateful. Not to mention business owner, I'm sure you spend a lot of time like self-developing and learning as well, getting your exercise, your movement, your fitness and healthy life in. But how do you manage your time? Because I'm always fascinated about that when it comes to people like you.
By not judging myself. And what I mean by that is initially what I was speaking about, when you're going through different times in your life and things are very stressful, time management and even work-life balance is different depending on the point in time you are in your life. Okay? So I would say recently I feel like I have a better grasp of, I know I'm confident with where my business is going, so now I'm more confidently getting into my gym routine again and all these sorts of things, whereas before what would have happened, it would have been like, oh, I have to, you know, run a business, start my YouTube channel, do this, do that. I've done everything so progressively and at such like as fast as I could within reason of not stressing myself to the point I get so traumatized and paralyzed with all the things I have to do.
Right.
So and again, like I listen to podcasts. So recently I listened to one on Mind Valley, which is a very good podcast, by the way. And there's this whole different outlook, because time management there's a misconception with time management. So what I mean by that is sometimes people have calendars with time blocks and they need to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and this. But actually it's shown and even proven in studies that people who just don't like schedule every single thing and make to-do lists in their calendar, they just actually open up time slots of when they can do things, and then they just get things done in that short period of time. So basically,
interesting. It's like a reverse.
Yes.
Engineering
so it's interesting because I've always had to-do lists, but I've never said, yeah, I got to get this done in 20 minutes and this done in an hour.
Yeah, I have an hour to do guitar, hour to do training.
And it's funny because I've been doing this since forever, and I didn't realize this until this podcast, and I think it's one of the reasons why I've gotten so much done is because I just kind of like, again, write out my goals. I write my goals out and I try to read them as often as I can. And basically what I'm trying to do is I'm giving myself time slots and I'm saying, okay, I'm going to do this here and do this here, but not saying, okay, I need to get this done tomorrow and you know, get this done in 3 hours and do all this kind of stuff, because then it just kind of gives yourself too much of a stressful kind of situation. Right. You have to realize that yes, you are human and whatever, but you are ultimately, if you are honestly doing the best you can, that's what you can do. But push yourself, because you know, you honestly, and I wrote about this in my book because I'm writing a book as well right now, but I speak to the fact that you do not know how much you're capable of until you push yourself, because you'll have, that's why I kind of find it's contradicting, because you'll have many successful people sit in, you know, a chair like and talking like you and I are, and they'll say, you know, you do have to take time for yourself and this and that. And I've had even successful business owners, as I'm treating them, tell me, you know what, Nichelle, like you work a lot, like you got to give yourself a break. But again, that work-life balance for that individual has changed as they became more successful and more confident in their role. So initially they were doing the exact same thing I was. They were working 16 hours a day and then, you know, only having a few hours to do that. But again, work-life balance is different. Balance does not mean equal. Okay? Balance does not mean equal, and that is what people stress out about. It does not mean equal. As you transition through your journey, right? It's an aha moment. As you and that's what I realized the past like couple years. Balance does not mean equal. That's not 50-50. No. And that's what throws people off, right?
Yeah, you say, what?
And so, you just have to be open-minded and aware that, as you go through different, you know, transitions, I'll call them, in your life, then things will change. Because right now in my life, I'm focused on my goals. I'm not thinking of my family right now. Like I don't have kids, nothing like that right now. I'm not thinking like that. That's not where I am right now. So I'm working my butt off as much as I can to get the goals that I want done, because I recognize that I won't have that same type of work-life balance when I have kids, right?
You're taking advantage of the transition you're in now, before you get to the next
one. So never feel guilty about that, and that's why I said how I get things done is I don't judge myself, because balance is not equal.
Balance is not equal. Wow. I love that. I love that a lot. I'm definitely going to use that. Can I use that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'll give credit here and there for sure. So, do you have any kind of like closing points or closing things you want to make? And then I know I'll get you on again, I'm sure, as long as you're willing to do it, of course, when your book is ready and come out. But actually, what is that like? What has that process been like? Are you at like the beginning stage of it, or?
So I've been working on this thing for years. So because I've just kind of been collecting different things and experiences that I've learned that I believe has helped shape my mentality to what it is today. And I truthfully give all the credit to the mentality that I have, for the success that I have, and the drive that I have based on what I've learned. And so that was kind of the idea of this book, is to just put all that in black and white or into audio form once I do that. But just to, right, because what resonates with me may not resonate with you. And even though like people are telling me, oh, there's so many books like that, Nichelle, why are you even doing that? Again, like people sometimes will just tell you things in your best interest when they have no business telling you certain things, because when you have a vision in your mind, you have to understand that you have to protect that vision, because how you see it, you cannot even put into words to describe to other people how you feel about that and what you have in store for yourself. So when I went to my mom, for example, again, I love my mom, but like, again, she's just like, Nichelle, why are you doing that? You suck at writing and this and that and whatever. Like, don't worry about, just focus on your business. But it's just like, no, I know I have so much more to give to the world than just what I do right now. And so that's kind of how I came to that. And that's why I started writing it, because I am another outlet for somebody who may have heard what I said at a similar extent 1,000 times, but because of the way I said it, that is what changes their life, and now gave them the opportunity to say, you know what, I'm going to do this. And that's what I feel like my purpose is I want to be that moment of change, a realization for even one person that could potentially literally change the world. That is what everybody in this planet actually has the potential of. You literally have the potential to change someone's life to the extent you actually impact the entire world at levels you don't even know. It's
fascinating. Do you have, now I'll get to it, sorry, I got really interested. That's cool. But you have any closing kind of messages or last quick points you want to get out to the audience?
Just I'll kind of reiterate that, because we've kind of gone all over the place, but the takeaway I would say from what I have to say is you just have to try and you just have to do. Do not feel failure. The fearing of failure stands for false evidence appearing real. So you just have to go for it, and if you really want to accomplish something, you have to tune out all the negativity and just do, and do not set yourself up for thinking you're going to fail something before you even try. Just try, so then that way you know what you want to do, because you actually have evidence to back you up, and not just because you heard about something or somebody told you something. Find out for yourself.
Nice. Where can people get a hold of you? Where can people find you? Where can
so I'm sure you'll leave my contact information below, but I have my email listed below in the bottom of my page on my website, and that's heat-therapy.ca. But you can find me on all social media. I'm even on TikTok. You just have to look up my name and you'll find it.
Awesome. All right, guys. Thank you for listening and watching. I'll be back soon. All of Nichelle's information will be below, and we hope you guys had fun. So take it easy. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate this.
Awesome.